Yeah.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Monday, December 16th, 2024 public board meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank. This is our final meeting of the year. My name is Mike. I serve as the meeting's moderator. We ask that members of the public limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. And with that, I turn it over to the board chair, Mr. Nate Hennigan.
Thank you, Mike. We'll start off with a roll call. Nate Hennigan, board member.
Rebecca Wilderness, board member.
Bartek Sardak,
Barbara Ioannidis, board member. Sarah DeLorto, board member.
Paul Hines, board member.
John Dorman, board member.
Great, we have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion to accept the prior meeting minutes as uploaded to YouTube and approve the current meeting agenda.
Motion.
Is there a second?
For all that.
All in favor? Great. We'll start off with the board chair announcements. First of all, wanted to say thank you to Owen for the walkthroughs of all the homes. I don't know how many of you got a chance to go on them. Somehow I ended up like a one-on-one with Owen on the second day. So I don't know how many people were on the first day, but it was really cool. It had been a while since I'd seen some of those houses, so it was nice to see like how they're really coming along. Yeah, so a big thank you to Owen for organizing that. Second, of course, wanted to say thank you all for coming out to the holiday party last week. It's a big success. I know I called you out that night, but I want to say again, thank you, Rebecca, for helping to really take the lead organizing that as our party planning committee chair, de facto party planning committee chair. It turned out really great. I think everybody had a lot of fun. It was really, I will say personally, it was really nice to see the new homeowners come. So that was really great. Yeah, I hope you all had a fun night. Keystone campaign, I know there's going to be a more thorough update on the actual statistics from the ADC later on in the meeting. But just want to say now that we're past the December 15th deadline, just want to say thank you to everybody for really chipping in. It really felt like everybody really chipped in various different ways, whether it was, going on Radio Kingston or helping hand out flyers or just telling your neighbor, whatever it was. So thank you all for helping get the word out. Hopefully when we get the final numbers back from Repco in a month or so, we'll have a good idea of how many people we have going into the lottery at our next board meeting. In January, February. So stay tuned for that. Also, sort of on that same point, wanted to say thank you to Barbara and Ethel for helping to do the porch chat. It was fun. Barbara and I got to do it, was that 2 weeks ago now?
It was last Monday.
Last Monday. Last Monday. It's up to 2,300 views, so hopefully that helped get some word out. I didn't even know how popular the show is. But hopefully that helped get the word out in advance of our Keystone deadline on Sunday. Either way, it was a lot of fun. I know, are you doing it with, I don't know who's going on the radio show with her?
We haven't decided.
Okay.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to go on Nadine's Radio Kingston show, Happy Hour, it's called. So if anyone wants to join.
Yeah.
Or anyone else?
Volunteers, we'll talk about it in January. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Great. And then just want to also say really quick thank you to everybody, staff, board. This has been I think a really successful year. We had the last of our home sales from the pilot and the Legacy Cities programs. We did the ribbon cutting. We're doing pretty great with funding. We've done a lot this year. We've got the Keystone first 4 houses coming up. So, we should all take a second to sit back and be proud of those accomplishments. And looking forward to doing the lottery early next year and then getting to do, the part that I love the most about this, which is the ribbon cutting. We get to hand over the keys and see the families that hopefully this is really life-changing for them. So thank you, all of you, for your hard work, and looking forward to continuing that into next year, with the one lone exception, which I would be remiss to not say, this is sadly our last meeting with Bartek. So I want to say again, thank you for your tenure from the very beginning. I know we already said a few words at the holiday party, but just wanted to say again, since this is your last meeting, thank you again for all your efforts with the land bank. I could say personally, it's been really great to get to know you and work with you, and you've been really like a calming presence, I think, for all of us. So thankfully, you're not going anywhere when it comes to housing in the city of Kingston. Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to.
I think we should develop a emeritus position on the board.
Hey, you don't have to be on the board to still volunteer and help out. So, just put it out there.
You can still share social media.
Did.
So I feel like for any of us now currently on board, you are the first face besides Mike that we got to meet. And that's significant for all of us. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Yeah, I like that. We don't have any members of the public, so we'll skip right through public comments and go on to our executive director's report. Mike.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I will try to be brief this time because there have been some awesome updates, but not all of them are in the same category. So on the pipeline side, there's really nothing to report. Same number of properties under evaluation analysis by both the city of Kingston for what's called the Article 19A proceedings, which is 7 properties vacant and abandoned. Code enforcement could be part of our pipeline, but remains to be seen when that could happen and when we would be able to conduct capital improvements on those. Similarly, Article 11, my understanding that those will commence by the city of Kingston for the first time in years in January. So that's exciting and remains to be seen how that works timeline-wise. With no change, my knowledge for the number of properties that the comptroller stated at the last two finance meetings ago or something, which was 75. So starting with 75 probably funnels down to very few. There's many more complications to see how many of those actually come our way. We've also agreed to revisit the conversation around the threshold in the city's disposition policy in the city of Kingston starting in January. So I look forward to engaging around that, and that might open up some more opportunities for us with those properties that I mentioned. And as always, every month I report there were 0 National Community Stabilization Trust properties offered to us. As I said, if you want me to stop, I will stop. I think it's funny, but I'm just wasting. Okay, so pre-development, no change from last month. 4 properties, same as last report, but there have been some updates or new opportunities on the 3rd Avenue site. We will be participating in response to the City of Kingston's municipal bond RFEI, which could allow potentially new innovative funding sources to maybe work with this development. It is a much higher threshold as far as the number of units that the city says that it's looking for than what we were thinking about, and it also seems to contemplate a market rate development, opting into this so that it would have beneficial financing and could turn some of those units into affordable. So it might be an apples to oranges fit, but we think it probably doesn't hurt to communicate our interest in trying to find a solution there. We will do that. That is due January 6th. Kyle and I will work on that. Thank you in advance, Kyle, although I know you've put in a ton of time already, and it looks really great where it is so far. No updates, updates on the home HDEV. This is the new construction, single-family homes. The update, and it's more important as to why this update is possible, but early next year, we will be issuing the RFPs for the site work. So like clearing and the trees and the blah, 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 and that'll actually be very exciting to get going with that. Probably not in January, Owen, when you're watching this at home, which I'm sure you will, but we'll do it soon. Depends on how the weather works. Property sales, no change from last month. The number of properties, obviously it's 4 properties. I'd like to echo very hard, sincerely, I guess is the word I'm trying to. Thank you, everyone. This is awesome. It's really inspiring to see everybody. We're all rowing in the same crazy boat. It takes takes at least a whole team of us to get someone into an affordable home. It happens every single time. We never know exactly where we're going to have to pivot or focus. I mean, 2,300 people on, that's like an amazing resource that we didn't know about last time. And so it's great. And Kyle has some awesome analytics that are actually in your board package about maybe what worked and what didn't, and we don't know, and we won't know exactly. So it depends on how you interpret the data, but we're starting to build some, at least things that we can measure against the next time. Campaign stats will be at ADC. So potential new funding opportunities. I would like to highlight, although it may belong more in the finance meeting, reporting of the finance portion of this meeting, that I would like to give a huge shout out to Stacy and to Owen in absentia and to Kyle for coordinating an amazingly sophisticated series of checks and balances and thresholds and do this, but don't do that. So this will happen around our current funding. I think the reason that we're able to secure so much additional funding is because we're so good at working with the funding that we've been afforded. And I think that comes through. I won't steal the punchlines, but I will say we did cross, as we said that we would, the 75% threshold, or we will this month, for LBI 2, which then allowed us to apply for more LBI 2, which we were awarded on December 12th. We have $2 million more. Hooray, that's really great. We do not have a grant agreement yet, but we wouldn't get the grant agreement until we exceeded 75%, which is taking place in a week or so. So it's like, that's just one piece of it. There's another big update on ARPA. We managed to successfully, I think, navigate our way out of some reporting requirements in both years that we will have the grant, because we balance the money in such a way that when we pick up the check this month and we deposit the check, that will keep us for 2 years from triggering any of those special requirements, which is awesome. The LBI 2 money could be and likely will be used for many different things, including but not limited to the home HDEV. It's called the home development pre-development, which is 2 and hard costs, new acquisition and or stabilizations, possibly some demo, possibly some pre-development on our Third Avenue site, continued pre-development on Third Avenue, so we can start that up again. Having been awarded the new $2 million in LBI, we are now eligible to receive an award for the home funding through the state of New York, because you have to have all your funding secured. So we expect that in January or February to be continued on that. That's $7,000 and $8,000 to pay for the hard costs. So those are my funding updates. I did want to echo, as Nate said, thank you, Owen, for the walkthroughs. It's a great opportunity to kind of see what's going on firsthand, and people can make the time to do it. It's like night and day when you go back and look, especially when you show up for the ribbon cutting and you're like, I remember how this was. And then it's like this amazing thing, and it's a wonderful thing for people. Wanted to just note on the annual retreat, if anyone has topics, some people have sent me some, let me know what you're thinking. We'd love to dig in on it. I think Kyle and Owen, Stacy and I will each sort of figure out our method of presentation, but we'll both take areas and kind of figure that out together. So last year it was Nate and I believe Nate and I will present again, but also there'll be other opportunities to dig into other things that hopefully are of interest. Last but not least, I will echo what Nate said. I won't do it as eloquently, but I don't know what to say, Bartek. It's been amazing working with you. And as Nate said, you're the very calming force in the room, which is a wonderful contrast to my nervousness constantly. And it's greatly appreciated. And it will persist, and our relationship will persist, and our shared goals and the goals of the city and the goals that we're both working on in this organization and your work running a department. I know that this is just the beginning. We really look forward to it. It's wonderful. 6 years of volunteer services. You should have a medal or a plaque, or
I got a plaque.
I did get a plaque. I did get a declaration. So, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you in this role. I look forward to. We all look forward to the next evolution of that relationship.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thanks, Mike. Before we jump to committee reports, there's one other thing that I forgot to mention, which is we have to do committee assignments for 2025. So I'd like to, if we can, do that before, I know like the holidays are coming up, so no need to do it right now, but I do want to make sure everybody's assigned to committees at least before the retreat happens, so that we can, like we did last time, sort of break off and have committee level discussions. So I'll send her out, keep an eye out for an email, just asking for the number of committees you want to be on and your order of preference. Just a reminder, the committees are ADC, comms and fundraising, finance and audit, governance, and design, right? Did I miss any? Okay, 5 different committees, so start to think, and it won't happen right away, but start to think about which committees you want to be on. Doesn't have to be the same ones you were on last time. Mix it up if you want. And if you have any questions, let me know, reach out to whoever's the chair of the committee right now. They can tell you about it. Yeah, so keep an eye for that. Great. So let's move on to the committee reports. Aaron is not here tonight. So for ABC, I will play the role of Aaron, which is basically just handing it off to Owen and Kyle to talk about the ABC report.
Owen is not here, so I would play the role of Owen. Yeah, exactly. I try my best. So I am sharing my screen. Share. Okay. So I'm trying to zoom in, and I will give the updates as written to me by Mr. Owen O'Connor. Overall, Keystone is going smoothly. Abbey and Chapel are nearing completion. I guess we could call them Apple. So that has a green check mark next to it in Owen's note. It's moving ahead. I'll zoom in a little more. It's probably not helpful. But last month, Stefan was behind schedule by about 10%. So now it is down. We've caught up a little bit. We're now behind by about 5% off the initial schedule. So that also is a good thing. Last month, Gil was behind 10% off schedule. It is now, as you will see, off by 19%. I would like to highlight that still means that we have a projected delivery date in February. It's no change to our original, what we've said to everyone, which is ready to move in by April. So no change to the project, but it is a slippage on the schedule. I'll read the following notes. Yes, Gil's schedule is concerning, but GC shows strong intent to follow through on this project. I'm being Owen now. I'm not worried about the project going off the rails. It's Owen. I'm just kidding. I think it will get done and done well. It's not that the schedule situation isn't worth worrying about. It's that we, the staff, are already worrying about it a sufficient amount. It is being worried about the exact sufficient amount. So I love Owen's sense of humor. It's very
Because we're not worried to go around.
Overall, we've added a few small change orders, but contingency spending is still modest. We have a substantial placeholder for grand in the quote projected change orders. We finalize the structural revisions to the front of the house. Owen has mentioned this in previous meetings, and so this is just a continuation of that idea. Preparing to go into active construction on Grand and Hasbrook soon. And then just kind of a little side note here. We have finished constructing for free a driveway for the neighbor next to our house on Gill Street. She and her family have a new curb cut. They have a new parking area. It's on their property and just in time for the snow. It's a great outcome. And we didn't know if we were going to be able to get that done this year, just given the weather and the building of things. So congratulations to Owen, wherever he is on that. That is my attempt at being Owen.
Could I ask a question about
Yeah,
the Gil thing without worrying?
Sufficient amount of worry.
Sufficient amount of worry. So, in the event that we don't have to move back, like, let's say we have enough qualified applicants after Rocco does all their thing, and we still are planning to have the lottery in January.
Yep.
Do we think there is any change? Well, I mean, it's not gonna be done by the time we do the lottery either way, right? We're aiming for, what's the completion date, like April? February. So,
That's done now.
okay,
And people would have the lottery, let's say they had the lottery on the 27th, they had 60 days from that is when they'd be able to close.
okay,
So there's plenty of time. So we're still not worried
okay.
more than we should be, but it is.
And would we be able to at least get like a certificate of occupancy so that we could go through closing, even if there's still stuff that needs to be finished? Okay.
Yes. When we forecast these completion dates, that's like final punch list, final walkthrough, final cleaning. The certificate of occupancy is far before that. So I don't have any worry about achieving that before we hold the lottery, but definitely before we extend the contracts, which is usually the next morning. So everything right now, there are no issues with the delivery date of guild versus when people would need to have certain things completed. Okay.
And at what point would we know whether we would need to like push things back a little bit? Whether it's, I mean, we very well may have to anyway, depending on like,
Sure.
it takes more time for rep code to figure out the
Totally.
applicants, but
Totally.
setting that aside, like what would be our cutoff date before we have to say, okay, we need to move back to the February meeting?
I don't think that we would need to worry about that. If we have a delivery date of February, if that slips to March, or if it slips to April, we're still okay.
Okay.
So I feel comfortable saying that we don't need to worry about moving back the date of the lottery because of the guild schedule. Might be other reasons that we would consider doing that, but I don't see this as one. I drove by yesterday, the house looks great. You should see it. It's nice, paint color is nice. It's stark contrast to previously. I think we've had a bit of a process with level of, I don't know, with the process of working with the building department has required us to produce increasing amounts of verification in a formal way, whereas previously we weren't having to go to the structural engineer to get everything stamped because the general contractor was allowed to use means and methods to install X, Y, and Z.
We flipped it? Is it because of the fact that they flipped the kitchen?
No, it's nothing having to do with what we constructed.
Just-
It's just the process now requires a lot more paperwork, and it may just be our learning curve is on Gill Street, and I think Owen has done a great job now holding a weekly meeting with the building department where he's laying everything out in advance and checking it. It's working, but it is just a lot more paperwork all of a sudden. And I think that's part of what's slowing us in the general contractor down. But nothing substantial, nothing crazy, no crazy change order.
Any other discussion, questions? No? Okay. Kyle, take it away.
Thanks. It's Kyle playing the role of Kyle tonight. Okay, so here's the financing update. It's based on this upcoming requisition, which we expect to do in the next week or so. A couple things to note. Last month, we did our first major ARPA requisition on this project. As Mike mentioned earlier, this is part of the balancing act to try and hit some year-end spending goals with ARPA and also hit a LBI spending target, which fingers crossed we will be able to hit with this upcoming requisition, bring us to a total 76% drawn on our LBI funds, which, as Mike mentions, allowed us to apply for the next $2 million of LBI funding once we hit that threshold. Yeah, so tracking with what Owen said, overall, we're more or less in line with where we anticipated being in terms of funds drawn. We have drawn down almost all of the LBI funds for Abby on the project, meaning going forward, as we draw down LBI funds for each of these homes, we'll start pulling more and more funds for ARPA, from ARPA going forward for the project. But this is exactly how we anticipate the project going. So not much to report there. I can just scroll through. Again, this is the overall project level. And as I go through to the individual homes, see we've drawn down 100% of the LBI funds we have for Abby. We're getting close with Stefan. And less on Hasbrook and Grand. So happy to address any questions anyone has on the financing.
All right. Any disposition updates, Kyle?
Sure. Let me just pull this up. So yes, I'm happy to announce we have at this point what's looking like 4 qualified applicants, meaning we have 1 qualified applicant for each home. We have 4 more close leads. Rupco's waiting on final documentation there. Hopefully that will give us some more depth. But we're informed that Rupco sent out over 70 applications to registrants. So they have until what the deadline we told them is a month from now to submit applications once, after they've registered. So over the next month, Rupco will be working through these 70 applications and hopefully narrowing that down a little bit more and getting us some more qualified applicants. But yeah, at this point, 1 for each home, hoping to get some backups for each home. But I think hitting this minimum is definitely something we're looking forward to doing. And that's the latest on the applications. Mike, do you think would you like to go through the registration kind of statistics and the analytics?
I like that stuff. If other people like that stuff, it might be interesting, or it might just be too far down.
I think it would be a really great thing to talk about.
The sufficient amount of rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go deeply into it at the retreat, maybe interesting.
Sure, it does
Yeah.
also.
Okay, just gonna give a brief overview on the campaign. So we see here is the whole course of the campaign. And it's our traffic to the KCLB site. And here we see the various sources that led to these that led up people to the KCLB site. We had a big bump around early November when we launched the campaign. When it first started in beginning of November in the first week. I think this was in line with some newsletters that we had sent out. Again, towards the end of November, another bump, and this I think was tied to again newsletters and Facebook. Seems to be what we've had a lot of success with. And then we just recently had another bump. This is more recent than what was shown in the board package, starting December 9th and 10th. So perhaps just porch talk, perhaps it was the latest email that was sent around us, our newsletter, telling people that the final registration was coming up. This data kind of lags a little bit, so I don't think we have the most accurate numbers for the 15th at this point. But overall, seems like people just going to our website has been the most successful way of getting registrations. But that could be through, word of mouth, through people seeing our website on one of our ads and typing it in manually rather than using the specific hyperlink or a QR code, something like that. But yeah, we had a lot of referrals from Facebook, through the flyers. These were people who specifically, scanned the QR code on the flyer. So yeah, a lot of activity there. Yeah, so a few big bumps.
Interesting,
5,000.
interesting. If you look at the Facebook visits, the average engagement time is really low compared to the other sources. It's 10 seconds. That's the fourth column over from the left. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Seems like, people Googling this, looking or searching this out on their own, had the most engagement time.
I just remember that the Instagram posted on the 9th, I believe.
Okay.
And I think back where that last spike is, December 9th is where that there was a post put out, so people were resharing that. So that could be contributing to that spike.
Yeah, I believe that's the part is the link tree, that's our link on our Instagram page. So that was 18 visitors. But again, people may have looked at that and just type in kclb.org on their browser rather than clicking on the link. So yeah, pretty helpful to kind of see where we've got these bumps, what's been helpful, what's been successful in getting visitors. I think this is much higher than what we had last time around, and we've gotten a bunch of registrations. I think it was at least 45 since our last board meeting, but that doesn't include the last few days of the campaign. I don't believe I have those numbers yet, but heading into the weekend, it was 45 more. I think that brings us to, let me see. Yeah, over 150 new registrations through the campaign.
That's total for the whole campaign or just since the last?
I believe that's for the whole campaign.
Great. Interesting on the links, there was from the New York Land Bank site. I don't know if that was just people Googling land bank and then finding their way to Kingston, or did land banks like post something about
No,
us?
they don't update it very often on that
I had a
website. They do
feeling.
have a link to our website, obviously.
But all you remembered was land bank, like if you heard something that
Yeah.
you
probably
radio.
Google land bank
yeah,
and
you might want to find your way back.
Better to remember that than trust.
Yeah, nobody. None of it came from the Kingston Land Trust. So
I mean, I think it's worth, sometime later on when we're done, take a sort of blue sky deep dive at the same time, like really look at these statistics, but also try to get an intuit or even data-based picture of what really worked, what didn't work, what are we doing well, and, combine it with some other pieces of data that we have. So that we can look forward and how does our overall public perception affect our success at selling our property?
Yep.
How are those things related to each other? Which thankfully Bartek won't have to be there for, because Bartek's got his head in his hand. Maybe that's just good.
No, I was gonna say, this, like, the fact that most of the traffic is direct means we picked a good hyperlink.
Yeah.
Got it my first week
Yes, we
here.
did.
I said, why isn't anybody taking this address? I went to register it with the KCLB's credit card, don't worry. I made sure I did that.
It's, still walk around trying to figure out, is there a tag phrase that'll get us,
Totally.
right?
Is
That'll get us,
the
I
engagement,
remember like a mnemonic. That's the word.
is the engagement time accurate? Can that be true? That everyone just stayed for 10 seconds and somehow registered, or 30, or like a maximum?
Talk about behavior on the internet.
Clicking.
It's probably, it's
Just
just very erratic.
Yeah.
It's-
Also,
I
the
know
registration
it's all
form
over.
is different,
Sorry.
maybe, is the
Yeah,
registration
click
form
on
a different URL, so they're clicking into the registration
Oh, and then they
after a
being
landing
tracked.
page, and then they're not being.
That's,
Well, we
that,
have to look at the analytics of the registration page.
that makes sense to me. That's cool. I mean.
I just made that up.
And it's average, so it's not like the median, so
Mhm,
like if
sure.
someone took
Oh, yeah,
10
somebody
minutes to fill out the
just
form, but some
bailed
people
out.
like click the link by accident,
Totally.
it's gonna skew it.
Totally.
Let's do 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's do this, let's do 10 seconds.
That was specifically to the register now page where we had the 5.3 thousand views.
How much that porch show? 2,300. Show.
Any other questions? We can, dive into this in more detail. It's an endless rabbit hole.
I know you and I could stare at it.
You got it.
One thing that was interesting, at least for me, and I threw it in the board package, but I had to take like screen grabs of it, was on the back of our registration page. Google gives you its own set of analytics, and it's not necessarily analytics as is like data points. And one of them that jumped out for me was, one of the things that was interesting is we seem to be, majority of people filling out our form are around the income requirements that we're looking for. So that's good. And around the bedroom size that we're looking for, so that's good. But the number of people who said that they had a pre-qualification from a bank before filling out the form was around 30%. Which to me, I was like, I never, that seems very high to me. That could indicate maybe that there are a lot of people shopping for market rate homes in Kingston. We just happen to go to our website. Like, I don't know how that data point
Or
correlates.
they might not understand the question.
Yeah,
Or they
right.
might-
They could have just like gone and gotten
Yeah.
pre-qualified or something like online, well, because they thought it would maybe there.
Maybe, we don't know. But to me, that jumped out.
Well, there's also folks, a lot of folks who went through the previous process and had to register again, right? So maybe they're like, well, I have the old.
Totally. Or I spoke with several people who were like, I have a pre-qual, I'm gonna apply. Great. Good.
I thought the most interesting of those data that you put in the package was the, how did you hear about this opportunity?
Thanks.
That like almost 20% was from the mayor's newsletter.
Crazy.
So
Good
people
job,
read it.
I love it. Friday afternoon, just getting ready to get in the weekend. See what's happening.
Wait, was it the mayor? I think that's the lighted version.
Oh,
so
oops, you're right.
less.
Wow,
Sorry.
sorry. No, thank you
The
for
mayor's
correcting.
newsletter is great.
It
Let's
is
keep
still
that.
significant.
Yeah. Still
The
some.
20% I was looking at is Facebook. 20% from our flyer,
20% from the flyers.
10% from Repco. And a not insignificant amount of people heard from a KCLB board member. So just goes to show you,
It's great.
people you talk to matters.
I was hooping and hollering at the Hannaford's for texted for Mike. I said, could you get, I was. And because I was talking to all the people, I was talking to the great manager, there's a great assistant manager at Hanford's, and then she was talking to all of her people, and she's like, you should go, and, you know, it was clear that, I would say that it seemed like a really great demographic, you know, that, and for these homes who just didn't know about it, or it didn't process to them. And of course, I texted poor Mike and said, take some flights to the Hanford's. Mike's like, I have other things to do.
I missed that.
But Mike didn't text that back, but maybe that's what
I
Mike
may
thought.
have missed that text.
Huh?
I may have missed that text.
You might have missed
My
it.
apologies.
Well, it was terrible that I didn't have one in my car or something stupid, but, you know, it's, I just think it's worth continuing to discuss whether we can get our information to the people in a way that might expand as we have more places to sell, we're gonna need to reach more people, right? So, and that's also an educational thing, educating the public relations, all of that type of thing.
A lot of organizations that I've seen that do this in larger and larger volumes just naturally adapt to something like what Repco does, which is a monthly meeting with potential first-time home buyers to talk about the process, and then that turns into credit counseling, and that, I mean, this is just a natural evolution that sometimes happens. Hopefully, our relationship with Repco, I would say, being stronger, increasingly deeper, could allow us to do something, some level of
A synergy.
synergy. That was the word. Yes, thank you. Anyway, forgot.
Kyle, any other updates?
That's it on my end.
Great,
Thanks, Colin.
thank you very much. Well, then with that, I think we're done with ABC report, yeah? So moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee. Rebecca.
The great thing about the Finance and Audit Committee is by the time we get to here, we've actually discussed most of what's on my piece. So there's certain redundancy. So I'm not gonna list the LBI numbers, the ARPA numbers, and what we expect to receive, and if you're curious, it's all there. Or you could just send me an email and I'll send you my notes. I do think it's interesting that things to point out or to look at, and most of these always come from the brilliant Stacy. So I do think the amount of interest income that we have is a very smart source of income, and showed some really smart cash management. The expenses remain within the approved budget, which is a miracle because the approval of the budget is far earlier than the expenses. And the fact that in a very volatile situation, these things stay in relationship to one another is a good thing. I would like to think of the relationship between the budget or profit loss, the budget, and where we end up at the end of the year is lean and efficient and balanced. And I'm gonna say lean because then I meant to ask Mike this, but it seems to me that there's an underlying philosophy inside of the budgeting, and I may have just made this up, but that looks to keep the relationship between all of the different funding sources and hard costs and operating expenses tightly next to each other, right? So that the budget is very reflective of what we think will actually happen, right? So that's what I mean by lean and efficient and balanced, right? So that's something that we can complement budgeting on. But that's also maybe a style of budgeting, if that sort of makes sense. And so I said with more language, it's considerable knowledge and expertise with both the financial and the concrete nature of the business. So that's what that shows. We might call that good management, but I would complement it. I do think that the horizon for the next year, it would be useful for us to observe and continue to observe the relationship between operations and hard costs. The relationships between what we might call the pipeline and the cost of raw materials, our grant income-based funding. Anytime there's a new administration in Washington, regardless, there are many things that change and many things that don't. And it's hard to say which of those will be where in terms of what our work is here. So I just think it's a time to be maybe more observant of the news, the budget, the numbers, and just to continue to look at also expanding or contracting pipeline and how that's going to affect operation, expanding or contracting grant income, how that's going to affect all of that. So I guess I think, Mike, that a lot of those things are still in change, in what we might think was liminal to be in a state of change. And so that's something for us to keep an eye on. And I was a little, I read the numbers very carefully because I was, very responsible. And I found that there was a $20 donation line a little perturbing. And so I just think maybe that there's a way for us to try to grow independent or individual donations that don't come from larger granting organizations, which might also, and I think there's expertise at the table that would allow us to do that, which will also foster engagement, a different kind of engagement with the land bank, which might serve as a backstop if we find ourselves in a situation coming down the road where we don't have as much grant income as we want. So we would like the kind of people that donate to be friends of ours, right? And to become engaged and involved. So if we ever need to go to them for larger substances of money, we can do that, which is part of the reason that we had a nice party in mind, right? That's part of where you get those people in and get to talk to them. So that's just maybe something we can think about, the relationship between donation, larger donation, and the Kingston populace. And I also think there's a lot of bubbles of different kinds of population in Kingston. Anytime we can bring those people together in a way where they get to encounter each other in a fun and positive way, it's just good for Kingston. So
if you call the group the friends, they'll feel like they're part of something.
Yeah, and I think finding ways to engage them, to entertain them, and that's all the stuff you do, right, when you raise money, right? So I just think that it doesn't feel like, when we have a lot of grant income, it feels like maybe we don't have the skills, or we don't know how. No, we're building houses, maybe that's not our first line of defense, that's not our first line of expertise. But I just think $20 is too little in that column, so we need to figure something out.
Sorry, can I clarify one thing? It was $20 just for that month.
Yeah, but still.
Still not enough, but it's like six months.
Yeah.
But I think that December, these 2 weeks are interesting because we saw
I mean, it's
a big uptick in these 2 weeks because this is the time when people are trying to get their tax deductions.
But there's also, everybody knows it, so there's also a whole flow of ask that comes through at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So maybe just at the retreat, you can think about how to get to those people before everyone else gets it. Anyway,
Could I ask for one other, whether it's from Rebecca or Stacy? of the 650 in donations that we've gotten year to date, that was in the report, how much of that is just like unrestricted, and how much of that is just for the grand fundraising campaign? We've got nothing? I thought we got some.
Can you tell me, say that again?
There's that, like, the fundraising campaign to buy down the price of
Yes.
grant. We've got nothing for that so far.
Unless the
$100.
fundraising that you did at the rough draft.
Yeah,
was
that was like
restricted use only.
That was- yeah, he's supposed to be having-
If we're restricting the use.
That came in December.
That was at the road.
Not that I necessarily want, like, it's better for us if it's all unrestricted. I just wasn't sure if there was anything specific, like,
No one
what's the
told me
latest on that
that
campaign?
it was restricted, right? So
Perfect.
that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless we get direction that that's the
Okay.
case, like someone would say, you know, for instance, I want this
Right.
restricted, this price. I don't know.
When you say year to date though, that $650 year to date, like January.
January through end of November.
January through November. Wait.
So which goes
Right.
to Rebecca's point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still not.
I mean, you know, I would be glad to hear that we don't want to do that. We don't want to develop that kind of income flow, right? That we don't have the time. We have But I just think it's something we should take a really good look at because of politics, because of, I keep thinking that the more we do, the more we're visible, and the more people that know us before we get visible, the more people like us. And the more people will be on our side as opposed to opposing what we're doing. And it's very concrete what we do, right? Think of the driveway, right? It's quite concrete, right? People get very agitated and upset sometimes, or they have a lot of feelings. So we just want people to know us and to know that we're ethical, to know what we're doing. And one of the ways that people get to know you is giving you money, because then they read what you send them. So that's just a relationship that I would like us to explore. Yes?
For the grant campaign and like fundraising for that, so if someone goes on our website and they go to donate, it has that PayPal QR code. Is that specifically for the grant campaign?
No.
So then where is, like, there's no specific like donation link
That's correct.
for the grant campaign?
Yeah.
If we had received donations, that would be more of a problem, I might say, but we
Yeah.
could certainly, is there a memo?
But also we
Maybe.
can, the board can allocate money.
Right.
No, I understand, I just wasn't sure, like, if, to Nate's question of like, how much of what we've received to date is allocated for the grant well.
Nothing, because these are reoccurring ones that people have been doing
Yeah.
for years,
Mhm.
and so they're doing
Yeah.
this
I mean,
for this.
ultimately, it's better for us if they're unrestricted donations
Right.
anyway. I guess my point was, we set a specific fundraising goal
Right.
for grand. So I was just wondering where we are with that goal, and to answer
What was
zero, then was it 20?
I thought it was
20,000?
30.
Yeah,
Okay.
We've historically been very fortunate at the end of the year,
yes,
2 years.
but I don't want to count on that.
I don't want to either. However, it coincidentally, I'm sure, is preceded by that annual, how do we do this year letter that I write and send out as a final newsletter of the year? Have that prepped and ready to go. I was waiting until we got through everything. I plan to either send it tonight or tomorrow or something like that. It's like, that's the fundraising
Yeah,
newsletter, because the campaign was sort of making it difficult to fundraise.
right. I mean, we don't, like, the campaign should have been out front first and foremost, but now that we're on the other side of that deadline, I don't want to lose sight of the grant campaign. So that was all.
And we can use the messaging of, you know, pulling down the sale price of the house without necessarily like restricting the money to it. You just use it as a touch point that people feel good about without saying, this is specifically what you're donating to.
Exactly.
All donations help drive down the sales.
Yes. So what's in my report was mostly that anything having to do with grants and anything on the municipal grant side, all of that in relationship to hard costs and to operating budget is in a very good balance, and efficient relationship. So, yes, amen, that's great. And I, compliments that because it's really, really complicated. And just, there's some other places where there might be income that we could look That's the end.
Great. Then I will entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Look at vote myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
great. Thanks, everybody. Moving on to the comms, community engagement and fundraising committee.
Much more to say, guys. Rebecca kind of stole my thunder there.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. So this was a part of the November meeting, which we mostly talked about the progress of the campaign, results so far.
Say yay
We
campaign.
debriefed on the rough draft event. We talked about fundraising. We talked about doing a Giving Tuesday campaign, which we did. It's a little few results, but we did it.
Great.
Congratulations on the campaign.
Yeah.
The billboard and everything. I mean, the fact that there are more people is, that we exist at all has much to do with you. But that the campaign was really successful, so I would like to compliment you on that.
Anything on this other discussion item, the social mixer opportunities educational presentation? That was also on the agenda. I don't know if that was.
It was left over as just an open item if there were future plans beyond the rough draft.
I think we talked about that it was a good thing to try. Rough
Yeah.
draft isn't necessarily the target audience there. It's not our target audience on Friday.
The
Can we get
baristas
donations?
came over.
What's that?
Donations, like
Yeah.
they're our target audience.
We did, right?
Right.
That one.
We got one. So, but I mean, it is like we did it, and the rough draft is in some ways an ideal format because there's always people coming and going, and I mean, they reserved that table for us, which was nice. So it was a good time for sure.
We'll see you at the next one.
It's nice. I mean, it's nice for just this visibility.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, if nothing else.
I think that that's like the question of these types of opportunities, like, is our goal to fundraise or is our goal to get the message out to
Yes.
the demo? It's, every opportunity should always be a fundraising opportunity. I understand it, but knowing like our demographic for the homes that we're building, you know, it's not necessarily the demographic that would be the ones we want to target our fundraising efforts to. So I think we need to like be more, not more, but like when we're planning these, like really flesh out like what our what our goal is. Like, is it to get dollars? Is it to get the word out? Is it to like talk more about the homes that are in the pipe, like that we have open registration for or upcoming registrations, deadlines? So I think that would determine like the right place.
Table at Hanford.
Table at Hannaford.
Yeah, I mean, let's just take time next year and have a think.
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
be intentional about, what is it that we're trying to do where, I mean, you make a very good point, and there's no reason for us not to try to do both.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly Hannaford's, both of the Hannafords, I mean, it's the only, that was the, I don't know if you guys went to the Midtown Rising, any of you, but I mean, that was one of the striking things in the research was how few grocery stores there are, which means everyone goes to the grocery store. Right? It's not like New York City, right? So it is a captive population that's all across the board from a fiscal point of view. Yeah, I mean, you might, if you were going to the refillery, you might have a different intent than if you were going to the Hannafords, right? So. Cool.
All right. So with nothing else for comms, then we'll move on to governance.
Yes, we didn't have our quarterly meeting last month. Nate has new volunteer agreements, yes? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Updated.
Do you want me to do that first?
Why don't you do it at the end?
Okay.
And we do have bylaw revisions. Today is the first reading of those bylaw revisions. We added, the new change is that we added clarifying language that the terms for each board member shall be no more than 6 years, basically. Yeah, that's the one change, yes.
Versus
It's
minor,
a change.
like change the.
It was a clarification,
Yeah.
more of a clarification.
For eligibility, yeah.
Oh.
So it's that change plus the conflict changes that we reviewed previously.
That's right, correct.
The 6 years are 2 3-year terms.
They are now.
Yes.
So that was-
Yes, because the previous language was no more than 2 terms, but not everyone had a 3-year term. Not everyone has a 3-year term necessarily.
So it used to be that if you were taking over for someone who was leaving before their term was up, you would be finishing out their term
As your
Yeah.
first.
as your first term, so it could be 2 years a year. But now the 3-year term will just begin instead of finishing out.
You would be appointed for no more than 6 years total. I guess we'll figure
Right,
it out.
but so it's not,
Yeah.
you're not necessarily taking over that person's term, you're
Right.
starting your own
Correct.
term, which
Just
will
thinking.
exceed no more than 6 years after 2.
We may run into something down the road because the governance committee asked me to lay out when everyone's term is expiring. So there could be that whole thing that it was meant to avoid originally, which was everyone is expiring at the exact same year, at the exact same month. And then there's, oh my God, we need a whole new board. So maybe something to think about in the years to come. When to recruit.
That's a
people.
2025.
Totally.
We also reviewed the latest board applications for my upcoming vacancy, and we decided to take no action this time. And that there would be a recruitment effort or a recruitment message early next year. And then we also, I have this important note to make sure that Aaron gets reappointed to the board.
And he has been.
And he has been.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Aaron.
His term was technically expiring at the end of this year, but, well, it was because he was appointed for a 2-year term as opposed to a 3-year term.
And all these guys are 3 years?
I can look it up. I don't remember.
Yes.
I think that's.
Everybody should be 3 years. And I
Around
think
3 years.
Aaron and I
6 years.
Well, that we joined, the rules were still that you would take over an existing term. I think we're the only ones that have that.
So where
We changed it after.
Or it's just.
I don't think it's just-
I just found it.
Second, second year of my second term, because I had a long.
We had 2 recent ones. We received like.
And then you have a 2-year term after that?
Yes.
Okay. Please, you have a 2-year term after
Yeah,
3 years.
no, I wasn't very,
Yeah.
like.
That's where we gotta get it right. We're requesting renewals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. Okay, Nate, if you want to take the response here.
Cool. So I think Mike emailed around just the red line version so that everyone could see. There's only one minor change from the last time we talked about this, which was just adding a paragraph that basically says, you know, if you have any materials that you created as a board member, like you still retain the right to use them for personal and non-commercial purposes. So that was after discussion last time. What's being passed around now are all clean versions, but if anyone wants to see the red line version, I have it. Yeah. But essentially the change is adding in paragraph 1A. I have a pen. In paragraph 1A, I added a clause, and is set, except as set forth in paragraph 1B below. And then added paragraph 1B, which is the language I just mentioned, that basically says that you retain the right to use the works for personal and non-commercial purposes. And today is the 16th.
I had a peculiar thing that happened to me when I first started here, but which I don't know what to get into, but I do think we have a lot of stuff that's online, and I think there are fair use things that come from things that are online. So, that don't necessarily have anything to do with this, but, just because we bought something that isn't this, and it's online, doesn't mean that someone else can use it. Some different, depending on what they're using it for. You can't steal it, but if we wanted to do an educational presentation on the Kingston City Land Bank, you could put our logo up in your educational presentation, because that would be within fair use. But I don't know. I'm not
Very easy to copy it. This is intellectual, it's a little bit different, but you're on the right track.
Oh, good, because I'm trying to learn.
So that was it. That was it for that. And I think that wraps up governance. So, thank you. I'll scan these and get them to you. Unless you have a scan.
I can see it.
Okay. I agree with you. Design committee, we did not meet this month, but looking forward to anyone who wants to get involved in it next year. I promise that we will do a better job next year.
But even though we're not meeting, we're still fielding design questions
Yes.
regularly.
Yes, so
Feels
that,
like we're meeting.
that was my next update. The design committee, even when we don't meet, we are still working closely with Owen. Owen and I have much back and forth about the color of the door. I'm sure you guys had emails.
Oh, yeah, we got all kinds. We got to get our own.
I think this is an Abby. This is the one that we thought was gonna be very stained clear. Turned out one of the doors was already painted, there's some specs to be painted, so we're just matching the color. Makes sense.
I had an experience where he showed me a post that was going, a different post that was going in a balcony, in a deck. And at first I was like, oh no, and then I was driving to work and all I could see was that post. And I was like, oh, this is fine.
So, for anyone who's interested, these are the kinds of fun
Yeah, it's
questions
really
we
exciting.
get to deal with on the design committee.
Is there one person per house?
One person for two houses.
For
right
two
now.
houses right now.
And that was what's interesting is going on those tours, you actually see in real life,
Yeah.
those little back and forths
Yeah.
that come to
It's like,
life.
hey, there's that vanity. I had to send a link to Owen for
There's a light finish.
Yeah. So,
And you're CC'd on all of those.
yeah, so it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. I'm excited next year. I think the design committee will also be engaging on the home HDEP,
Yes.
certain elements of it.
So lots of big, this is now turned into a commercial for the design committee, but
Yeah, please do.
there are lots of exciting things that will be going on next year with HDEV and possible other projects with our vacant properties. So, yeah, if anyone's interested. I think that covers everything for me. You have anything else? Cool.
So speaking of the committees, is what you'd like us to do is to email Mike? or-
I'll send her out an email. I was just giving everyone a heads up to start thinking about what committees you want to be involved in.
Is it Google, the hospitality easier?
I could maybe do a Google form,
Yeah, I was like.
see if I can figure it out.
But also to clarify, it's not, you don't have to switch into different committees and it's just, but,
Everyone has to be reappointed for.
right,
2025.
exactly. So if you're in certain committees and let's say you just joined them recently, then you can stay.
Yeah,
You
you
can
can
ask
stay
people to just
once you're
reinstate in those same committees.
Yeah,
It's not an obligation to mix it up, but. if you want.
Yeah. thank you. No, that's a good point. Yeah, so keep an eye out for an email. I'll send that around.
Okay.
But I just wanted people to start thinking about, as we were going through the committee reports and talking about everything, start thinking about what kind of stuff you want to be involved in. Well, with that, having no other public comments, any new business? I don't think so. Just want to wish, all right, I'll get it later. Just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Hope you're all taking some time off, spend time with family. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, everybody.